tried to silence him. They erased his name. But he rebuilt from nothing. He fought every algorithm. They tried again and failed. Now he's back, stronger. From blackout to spotlight, he's at the White House, at the top of his game. Franchi lives.
You are about to enter another dimension, the dimension of truth, unfiltered and uncensored. Welcome to the Raw Feed with Gary Franchi.
Darkness swallows fallen systems. Systems collapse without truth. This time,
we take America back!
The Raw Feed starts now. The Raw Feed.
Welcome to the Raw Feed. I'm Gary Franchi, coming to you live from the heart of America. Unfiltered truth to millions on YouTube. Hit those donation links below. Every contribution powers our gear. Every contribution keeps the party going. Help me help you. Hit those donation links. YouTube channel memberships. Special acknowledgement in the fellowship. Your super chats keep me standing. Your Rumble rants fuel every round.
Say hello to super chats.
Spread the intel. Every repost extends our reach.
Super chats fuel this spectacle. Your Rumble rants give me strength.
24/7 members-only community, behind-the-scenes discussions.
Connect with fellow patriots.
My mama always said, life is like sharing the truth. Text this stream to your friends.
What if I told you the app is real? Download the Next News Network app. Android users, take the Google Play path. iPhone users, App Store awaits.
What's up, everybody? The deep state is in full retreat tonight, and the stories we've been tracking for weeks now detonating across Washington, Minneapolis, and the Caribbean. Good evening, America. I'm Gary Franchi, and this is the Raw Feed. And 84 years ago today, on December 8th, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt stood before a joint session of Congress and delivered the most consequential 6 minutes in American political history. The day before, Imperial Japan had launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,400 Americans in a strike designed to cripple our nation before we even knew we were at war. Roosevelt called it a date which will live in infamy. And within hours, Congress declared war, and America mobilized against an enemy that had operated in the shadows, planned in secret, and struck without warning. Well, tonight, December 8th, 2025, America faces a different kind of war, not from a foreign empire across the Pacific, but from enemies embedded within our own institutions. Bureaucrats who protect criminals, politicians who fund fraud, media empires that manufacture reality, and a deep state that will do anything to maintain power. The battles that we are tracking are reaching critical mass now. The January 6th pipe bomber investigation, a story we've been following since the beginning, just cracked wide open. Legal analysts are now asking the most dangerous question in Washington. Does President Trump even know who is inside Pam Bondi's DOJ is running this case? CNN rushed to paint suspect Brian Cole Jr. as a Trump-supporting election denier, but the profile is too perfect, the timing too convenient, and the narrative too clean. After years of FBI failure, we suddenly have a suspect who checks every box the regime needed. And tonight, we dig into what they do not want you to see. And the Somali fraud empire in Minnesota, another story we've been exposing for weeks, is now officially the largest welfare theft operation in American state history. Over $1 billion stolen, fake children, fake NGOs, fake meal programs, and at the center of this firestorm sits Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose early political supporters are now exposed as convicted fraudsters. Whistleblowers are talking, ICE is raiding, and the Walls-Ellison political machine is fracturing from within. The walls are closing in. In the narco-terrorism crackdown we've been covering is going supernova. President Trump's military strikes against cartel drug boats in the Caribbean have Democrats in absolute panic. They're defending traffickers on national television, calling them poor fellas who lacked opportunity. And now an Obama-era DEA officially has been criminally indicted for laundering $12 million for the cartels. The pipeline is being exposed, and the apologists are panicking. But that is not all. Governor J.B. Pritzker, in my home state of Illinois, has released over 1,700 criminal aliens, including murderers and predators, back into American neighborhoods to hide them from ICE. Democrat lawmakers in New York are openly teaching illegals how to evade federal agents. Yes, this is not immigration policy. This is called organized obstruction. This is the sabotage of national security. And Netflix, the streaming giant, already infamous for cultural engineering, is making an $82 billion power grab for Warner Brothers, HBO, and DC Comics. If the merger succeeds, the Obamas, Susan Rice, and DNC mega donors will control Batman, Superman, Harry Potter, in the minds of millions of Americans. President Trump says he will personally weigh in on this deal. The battle for American storytelling has arrived. So Roosevelt warned Congress in 1941 that the attack on Pearl Harbor was not the end, but the beginning of a long war against forces they wish to destroy us from within and without. Tonight, 84 years later, that war continues. Different enemies, different battlefields, but the same stakes for the survival of this republic, and we are not backing down. So stay with me, because the Raw Feed starts now. Let's welcome you to the show. Who is in the house tonight? Let's run it through. We got Ruby Hoove already donating or giving memberships. 5 Next News memberships right out the gate. And do we have any super chats to speak of yet? I don't see any, but I'm sure they will be showing up soon. Let's see who else is here. Pothead Kenny, Karen Hansen, James Fay, Karen Finley, Berlinda is here as well. We've got T. Duff. We've got Ron the Don, Bear Jew, Cindy. Hey, Gary, let's go in 3. Merry Christmas to you guys. Kev the Tech, 86. Scontech, Tyson Curie, Democrats for Prison, 75. What's up, man? Who else is in the house? Let's see. General Sorrow and Cam Apsara over on Facebook. And our first super chat has just come through. The seal has been broken, and we want to thank Inbred Outlook for doing so. $2, our Golden Knight 100, as we always do. But let's get right into it because the news waits for no man. Let's go, Brian. Tonight, the January 6th pipe bomber case we've been tracking just took a turn nobody in Washington wanted. Yes, the suspect is in custody, but the media, of course, is celebrating. However, something is very wrong with the story. The profile's too clean, the timing too convenient, and the questions being asked by legal experts are the ones the DOJ desperately hopes President Trump never hears. What happens when the man in the Oval Office discovers who is actually running the case inside his own Justice Department? So, here's what is at stake. For 3 years, the FBI produced nothing on the pipe bomber. Pixelated footage, vague sketches, dead ends, and now suddenly we have Brian Cole Jr., a suspect who CNN immediately labeled a white man and a Trump supporter and an election denier. Every single box the establishment needed checked in 48 hours. Legal analyst Viva Frei is asking the question that should terrify every American. Does Donald Trump know who the prosecutor is on the case? Does Pam Bondi? Because if deep state holdovers are still running the show inside the DOJ, this case is not about justice, it's about narrative control. It's about pinning January 6th on Trump supporters one more time before the truth comes out. And if that's true, the entire foundation of this prosecution is compromised. So as we wrap up 2025, it is a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing that we've learned, uncertainty isn't temporary, it's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal is not a plan, it's a gamble. And for over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves by diversifying with gold and silver. Yes, nobody knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing is for sure, real wealth is not digital, it's physical, it's lasting, and it's yours. So before the year ends, take one smart step towards a safer future and visit nextnewsgold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's nextnewsgold.com. Don't leave your future to chance or call that number on the screen, 877-646-5347, to find out how you can get 10 1-ounce silver holiday coins with a qualified account. Now, let's continue because here's where it gets even more suspicious. Reports now claim that Cole expressed interest in anarchist groups while also being a general Trump supporter. That's a contradictory profile that makes no sense unless it was assembled by committee. CNN's Evan Perez admitted the suspect supposedly believed the 2020 election was stolen. Not exactly a rare opinion, but very convenient if you're trying to craft a political motive for a case that confounded investigators for years. And when the Daily Wire pushed back, asking if Trump would have pardoned a bomber, the establishment pounced. They're already shaping the narrative before the facts are even public. So here's the moment when President Trump was asked directly, what's your gut instinct? Kara Castronova, White House correspondent, asking the question at a round table. Let's watch.
Democrat hoax.
Entertain. I'm Kara from Lindell TV, Kara Castronova, and I'm not fake news, just so you know. When you did nothing wrong. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that question. It's sort of a statement, and I appreciate it very much. Jesselyn is being looked at. They all have to be looked at. What they're doing is so bad. This was a whole Democrat hoax. The whole thing was a Democrat hoax, and it's all being looked at. I appreciate that.
It's all being looked at. It's a Democrat hoax. So, in case you missed it, the January 6th pipe bomber kept buying bomb material after the attack. Christina Aguayo writes, alleged J6 pipe bomber Brian Cole His face has been revealed, and here's what we know about him according to legal filings. 30 years old, works in a bail bonds office, lives with his mom in Woodbridge, Virginia, 5 feet 6 inches tall, wears corrective eyeglasses. The FBI has years' worth of records of purchases at stores around the Northern Virginia region for pipe bomb components, and the phone pings fall in line with the bomber's movements. Brian Cole Jr. of Woodbridge was arrested on Thursday last week for allegedly planting pipe bombs outside both the RNC and DNC headquarters on January 5th, the night before the Capitol events. Now, let's continue here. More questions are being raised. The J6 pipe bomb sparks new questions. Populist Times writing this, that we have court documents and recent media reports following the arrest of J6 pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole describe him 30-year-old resident, 20 minutes from D.C. lived. He was socially isolated and has developmental challenges. His grandmother said he's very naive. He's almost autistic-like because he doesn't understand a lot of stuff, adding he's slow. He may be 30, but he's got the mind of a 16-year-old. That is what they're saying over on that. And then we have this. J6 pipe bomber suspect's family just rained all over the left's Blame Trump parade. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. We've lost track of the many times our pals on the left and even some on the right have assured us that they've got Trump this time, only to have it turn out they didn't have him that time or any time. And boy, howdy, they were super excited when CNN reported with anonymous sources the J6 pipe bomb suspect thought the 2020 election had been stolen from Trump. Finally, they would be vindicated. It was an insurrection. And, of course, they all want you to believe CNN because CNN is one of them. Well, it turns out there's one massive problem with the claim CNN reported based on someone we have no idea who they claimed was familiar with the situation. He is no Trump supporter. Even his family says so. John Solomon reports family of J6 pipe bomb suspect denies he's a Trump supporter, according to his report. Well, we feel shocked? Nope, not at all. That is from Just the News. That was the grandmother. Quote here, the grandmother of January 6 pipe bomb suspect denied in a news report that her grandson was a fan of President Trump, arguing he had no party affiliation and never votes in elections. So you can see how the narrative is falling apart. Let's jump in with Viva Frei, who's with Benny Johnson. This was about 72 hours ago. Former litigator Viva Frei says the physical appearance and walk of the pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole does not line up for him. I can't get past it. And of course, if you recall, when the early reports came out on the gait analysis, it pointed to somebody completely different than who was arrested. So let's hear what Viva Frei has to say here.
So clearly, it's got to be foot.
The retort to that,
or the vehicle belonging to him is sitting there on Capitol Hill. So clearly, it's got to be footage of the guy getting out. Does he have a backpack? Does he have a hoodie on? Does he have a mask on? Does he have his gloves? Like, show us.
Well, but this, going back to the beginning part where you said, the guy lacked confidence, the retort to that would be if this person knew exactly how to avoid, certain cameras in terms of how they got to where they were and where they started. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't avoid cameras. Like an operator could have taken circuitous routes around Capitol Hill to be to be the least on camera. But this individual was the most on camera.
Well, except as we say, like, we don't see the person putting on the mask. We don't know how they got to where they are and how they left. So,
but do they have that? I mean, that's what Mike Benz's contention is, that they do have that.
Benny, I've got 6 cameras around my property, high def. I can skim through any second of the day to see what happened where. Do I believe that they don't know? Do I believe that they could easily identify this individual if he's black? I mean, it's like black and white. It's the easiest thing to determine. Forget whether or not it's a woman or a man. The person, black or white, we should be able to determine that. Yes. And if someone's going to try to tell me that we can't, based on all of the footage and all of the cameras in DC, call me conspiratorial, call me a pessimist. I'll have great difficulty, believing that. So if it turns out definitively that this person is Cole walking around, all right, then we've got to know who else was involved in radicalizing this kid, if any. We're going to see, what his search history was. I presume they're going to get that off of the computer. We're going to see if there were other things on his computer which might stir up other conspiracy theories. There was a Twitter thread where that they were talking about whether or not this guy had alternative handles on sex websites. We'll find all of this out. But we're at chapter 1. Maybe we're not at chapter 1. Maybe we're at chapter 5 because we've had a previous 4 chapters that nobody enjoyed reading. We've got to wait for the additional evidence to come out. All I'm saying is you look at this and we'll see how this kid moves. His neighbors say he doesn't walk like the guy, like the person in the footage. We don't yet know what his weight was at the time of the incident. To me, it doesn't look like the same frame as Hoodie Guy. But we'll see. I mean, they've arrested the person. They're going to gather more information. We have not yet had massive disclosure of the evidence in support of this arrest. The affidavit, sufficient in my view to warrant an arrest. There's a lot of coincidences there, but maybe not sufficient to secure a conviction, and they'll get more information. Wow. But this reeks like it was part of a plot involving the former DOJ, the former FBI, and Biden's administration, and they didn't just neglect to look it over. They actively participated in this and could never have it see the light of day. So hopefully that evidence comes out, because otherwise, if it's just a one-off lone nutbag, like in other cases where we've been told to believe the unbelievable, a lot of us are not going to believe it.
I mean, oh, wow. That is absolutely stunning. Here is CNN's Jake Tapper calling the J6 pipe bomb suspect a white man.
State Commerce, Ryan Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction. Ryan Cole Jr., a 30-year-old.
CNN, man. Yeah, they never fail. This is 72 hours ago. This is from MS Now, which is the rebranded MSNBC because nobody watches them and they need a rebrand. MS Now reports Brian Cole in custody expressed interest in social media anarchist group and generally supports President Trump.
He was on. We were learning last night and confirmed more details this morning that Brian Cole Jr., the suspect in the January 6th pipe bombing case, confessed to FBI investigators yesterday in an interview that he planted those 2 devices that did not detonate in the areas around the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 5th. He was on surveillance tape, or a person was on surveillance tape doing that. He confessed that that was him. We also learned that he indicated that he was a supporter generally of Donald Trump, and also that he has been involved in basically supportive kind of social media interest in anarchist groups and anarchist philosophies. But investigators are still stumped about what his motive was. That is not yet clear. Though he's cooperating with investigators, they are not yet sure what really moved him to do this. There doesn't seem to be any evidence, I want to add, that he, at least not yet, it doesn't seem to be any evidence that he coordinated with any of the militia groups that ultimately were involved in planning the breach of the Capitol.
You see how she just threw out those trigger words there just to kind of like imply but clarify that he wasn't. It's just crazy. CNN's Evan Perez, what we learned is that among the statements has made, he believed the election was stolen. Here's the narrative development.
And what we've learned, the Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, who's really has been a big force for trying to solve this case, he said on Fox News last night that they had interviewed the suspect, the young man who'd been arrested on this case, at length over the last 24 hours. And what we've learned is that among the statements that he has made is that he believed the 2020 election was stolen. And so that appears to be the first statement that has been made in this case that might give an indication of a motive of why he may have placed these bombs in those locations. Remember, the 2 bombs were found at the RNC building, in an alley behind the RNC building, and at the DNC building, both of those just a couple blocks away from the Capitol. And for the last 5 years, Sarah, you know that this has been certainly a fixation of a lot of conspiracies as to whether this was something connected to the riot, because you remember when they found these bombs, the crowd had just begun surging and breaking through some of the cordons at the U.S. Capitol just a few blocks away. So the question was it connected to the riot and to the conspiracy theories that the president had been pushing forward to overturn the election? Well, now we know that this suspect has at least told the investigators in this case that part of what was going on at the time in 2020 was that he believed that the 2020 election was stolen, which is something that President Donald Trump was pushing at that time. Now, we don't know what else he has said as part of those interviews. Certainly, we're going to learn a lot more, perhaps today when he appears in court, and perhaps we'll see additional charges that will come forward from the Justice Department, from prosecutors, but certainly more to come on this.
Certainly more to come, that's for sure. Man, you got to love the mainstream media when they just start pushing narratives. Let's go back to Viva Frei. Does Donald Trump know who's working in Pam Bondi's DOJ?
Before trial, they put me in a room, and we talked about this part. They put me in a room. They slid a piece of paper across the desk with a narrative on it. And they're like, if you sign this, you'll have a bail hearing next week, and we guarantee you won't do a single day in prison. I pulled the document in. I looked at it. And basically, what the document said was that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, through the means of a third party, told me to storm the Capitol of the United States to stop the certification of the election.
May I stop you just for 1 second? Who's sliding?
Now, if you don't know who that is, I believe that's Enrique Tarrio on the right.
This paper, and who's asking you to sign it?
And Viva Frei is speaking with him now.
Her name is Jocelyn Ballantyne, and she works for the Department of Justice. And she was the head of the Capitol Siege Division for the Department of Justice at the time. Sitting in the room, she's the one that offered it. I said no. And she told me to lie about the president in order to go home. And there is no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because at that time, Jack Smith hadn't been appointed yet. There's no doubt in my mind that one of the people that were working with Jack Smith to prosecute the president, because it was a January 6th case, she definitely worked with Jack Smith. There's no doubt in my mind that Jocelyn Ballantyne worked with Jack Smith to prosecute the president of the United States, right? Because there's no other person, right, that knows more about everything that happened at the Capitol than the head of the Capitol Siege Division at the DOJ.
But I presume, you'll correct me if my assumption is wrong, had you signed that, they would have used that, Ballantyne would have used that to prosecute Trump.
Well, she would have given it to Jack Smith at that point. Jack Smith, again, the timeline is that Jack Smith wasn't appointed until a couple months later. Actually, yeah, a couple months later. But I'm 100% sure she would have been the person working there with it.
So you see, they're dropping names here. Where are these people now? Does Trump know who is the prosecutor on the J6 pipe bomber case? Does Pam Bondi? Unfortunately, there are no good to answer these questions. The shocking moment of my interview with Noble One, where he, for the first time, explains how it was Jocelyn Ballantyne who tried to coerce a false plea deal implicating Trump in order to spare Enrique jail time. The same Jocelyn Ballantyne who is still working at the DOJ and is now prosecutor in the J6 pipe bomber case. If you didn't know this, please share it and get it to the attention of President Trump. There are no mistakes or contradictions that can be overlooked any longer. Do you understand that? Do you understand the context that we're discussing here? The same person who tried to implicate President Trump through a false statement signed by Enrique Tarrio while he was under duress in a prison cell is now working still in the DOJ and the prosecutor in the case for the J6 pipe bomb. Think about that. 3 days ago, the FBI says this is according to CNN, again, narrative control, told the FBI he believed in conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. So, again, this is another segment on CNN pushing that false narrative.
Also, let's look at our other breaking news this morning. We're getting some more details on the man accused of planting pipe bombs right near the U.S. Capitol on the eve of January 6th. Sources tell CNN the 30-year-old suspect in this case, Brian Cole Jr., told investigators after his arrest he believed the 2020 election was stolen.
You see that? No, boom, right there, right in the open of that breaking news clip. That is the first point they make to drive home for people just casually watching. They see the breaking news graphics show up on the screen. They lead with that message so that everybody goes, ho, 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 did you hear that? And then they go, okay, well, turns out, yeah, he was MAGA. He was MAGA, clearly, right? But bigger questions now. And then we have this from this is on CNN. Looks like we have Abby Phillip and Isabel B. in the roundtable. Daily Wire comments, I'm sorry, does the left really think that trespassing and planting bombs are the equivalency?
I do wonder if he had been actually caught around the time of January 6th and prosecuted, would he have been included in Trump's pardons?
I mean, okay, this is absolutely beyond the pale to me, to be honest, to claim that we don't know any sort of inkling of a motive of this individual when just a few months prior there was a lawsuit ruled in the Trump administration's favor against this particular individual for his company seeking to let illegal immigrants out of prison on bail bonds. He purchased the supplies in 2019.
Just to clarify,
very clearly.
What we're saying is that on that podium there,
yeah, you're suggesting that he's tied to January 6th insurrectionists theoretically, because had he been found at that time,
we are saying that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi did not provide a motive, and so you can speculate all you want, but the authorities who are charging this guy haven't laid out a motive. That's all I've said. The other thing is that, no, I'm not suggesting that he was tied to stop the steal, but I'm not sure why you think that would be
had he been discovered right after January 6th, would he have been included in the pardonings from individuals who participated?
So it's called a hypothetical. Had he been prosecuted alongside all of those other...
Just throwing out the hypotheticals. See, here's the bottom line. If President Trump discovers that his own DOJ is staffed with holdovers and infiltrators running shadow prosecutions, if he realizes the pipe bomber case was politically sculpted rather than factually solved, the entire J6 mythology collapses. And that is what they fear. That is why they rushed this suspect into the spotlight, and that is why the ground under their feet is starting to crack tonight. Now, the story matters because it's not about one suspect. It's about who controls the Department of Justice. For 3 years, the FBI gave us nothing, blurry videos, contradictory timelines, a composite sketch that looked designed to identify no one. Now, out of nowhere, a suspect appears who fits every narrative requirement the regime demanded, suspiciously after Steve Baker and the Blaze TV broke the news on who they believed was the actual pipe bomber, who was a female Capitol Police officer. All right. So you have somebody who is a grandmother, admits he's not very smart, he's borderline autistic, and clearly never indicated anything about President Trump. Right? You see what's happening here? It's like they picked some person that was, low IQ or whatever, and they're like, let's go. Right? All signs point to that, but so you don't look at the Capitol Police officer. Right? They said he was a Trump supporter. They said he was an election denier. He said he was a white male. Every single talking point gift wrapped for CNN. The American people are not stupid. They see the pattern. They remember how the Russia hoax was constructed. They remember how evidence was fabricated, sources were invented, and careers were destroyed to protect the establishment. So the case smells the same. And my question for you, we can talk about in the comments, do you believe the official pipe bomber story? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments. And if you want to support independent journalism that asks these questions, check out the Next News merch shop. It's linked in the description. All right, moving right along. That was a hot story. That was great. And I am live right now sending out a text message. I hope you send out a text message to your friends and family. Let them know to tune in to the Raw feed tonight. We are moving into our next topic. Let me just double check and see if there were any super chats that I need to address before we move into this next topic. No, just Inbred Outlook was the last one at $2. All right, moving right along. We've got to talk about what's happening in the biggest scam firestorm that is now consuming Minnesota. The Minnesota fraud scandal that we've been tracking just became the largest welfare theft operation in American history. Not millions, not hundreds of millions, over $1 billion stolen from programs meant to feed hungry children and help the sick. And tonight, the trail leads directly to the doorstep of one of the most protected politicians in America. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's political machine is at the center of the firestorm. Whistleblowers are talking, ICE is raiding, and what investigators are uncovering will absolutely shock you. And here's what's at stake. See, Stephen Miller says this is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. Dr. Oz confirms that CMS officials told him they have never seen anything like this in Medicaid. Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and top Minnesota officials all face massive scrutiny over what they knew and when they knew it. The scheme was on an industrial scale. Somalian networks created fake NGOs, registered with the Secretary of State. They used random name generators to invent 5,000 fake children supposedly receiving meals daily, fake receipts, fake distribution lines, fake everything. And now it's been exposed that the owner of a restaurant who hosted Ilhan Omar's 2018 election victory party is now a convicted fraudster. This was not sloppy corruption. This was organized theft operating in broad daylight under Democrat protection. And while scam artists stole billions from programs that are meant to help Americans, honest people were sold another lie. Expensive injections are the only path to weight loss. A major analysis found people who stop Ozempic gain back nearly all their weight within a year. That is the real scam. You see, these drugs only work while you're on them, but there is a smarter way. It's called BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate. You can get it at trimwithgary.com. Helps your body naturally trigger hunger-controlling signals without needles, prescriptions, or scary side effects. It promotes fullness, reduces hunger hormones, and supports fat loss instead of muscle loss. So right now, at 40% off plus a 60-day guarantee. And for every order, BioTrust donates a meal to a hungry child. Visit trimwithgary.com today. But you see, the revelations keep on coming. When asked about the possibility that stolen money was being funneled to foreign terrorist organizations, Ilhan Omar did not deny it. She giggled. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent put it bluntly. When you come to this country, you have to learn not to defraud the American people. Meanwhile, ICE is now conducting armed raids across Minneapolis targeting criminal Somalis. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the arrest of a serial R-word, Abdimat Bilay Mohammed, saying there are more charges to come. And whistleblowers now confirm Omar's campaign funneled massive amounts of money to her husband's firm while these fraud networks operated freely. So much to dig into right now. The massive Somali fraud scandal exploding under Tim Walz's watch is officially being called the biggest in Minnesota state history. Let's check this Fox clip.
I think all this will be investigated very thoroughly because there's really a national spotlight on Minnesota.
Stephen Scher, Minnesota political expert on Fox.
I think all this will be investigated very thoroughly because there's really a national spotlight on Minnesota and all its problems. I mean, this is a scandal that is by far the biggest in state history.
Meantime, the immigration roundup Metro Surge conducted by ICE in Minneapolis has taken some 15 people off the street. DHS says they are illegal. 5 of them are Somali. Meantime, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frei, has issued an executive order making off-limits city property like parking garages to the federal agents to use as rally points before they conduct some of these operations here in the city. Sandra, back to you.
Mike Tobin live out of Minneapolis on that for us. Thank you. John.
Sandra, let's bring in Trey Gowdy, host of Sunday Night in America. Trey, great to see you this afternoon. So we should point out that Ilhan Omar has not been directly linked to any of this, but a lot of questions being raised about how much she might have known or suspected what was going on, because she does know a lot of the people who were involved in this. We just put this together here. She introduced legislation that led to the $250 million being defrauded.
I think all this will be investigated very thoroughly.
The clip has to end there. Ilhan Omar and the Minnesota fraud scandal. She introduced legislation that led to the $250 million being defrauded. She held events at one of the restaurants named in the fraud case, had former staffer who was convicted in fraud investigation, according to the New York Post. That's the slide. Oh, man. They cut it off at the worst part. And now we have this. It's been revealed Somalians in Minnesota carried out the $250 million Feed Our Future scam by creating NGOs registered with the Secretary of State, then used a random name generator to invent 5,000 fake children they claim receive food daily, with investigators only finding 40 Somali children were fed in 6 weeks.
Much more brazen.
Remind us, logistically, how were these people able to pull off this massive fraud scheme? Was it just overbilling?
Right. It started out as overbilling. So the Child Care Center might have 60 people officially enrolled on their books, and 30 would show up on a given day, but they bill as if all 60 showed up. Just straight up overbilling. Over time, it evolved into a much more brazen scheme where they would create nonprofits, go register with the Secretary of State's office, create a nonprofit, and then file to join the food program. And literally, one day they didn't exist. The next day they existed. The day after that, they were claiming to feed 5,000 children a day. Their children didn't exist. So you mentioned the spreadsheets where they just used a random name generator to make up names of non-existent children to show to the state, we really are feeding all these kids, but the kids didn't exist, the food didn't exist. So it started out as overbilling, and then it became billing for non-existent stuff. They just send invoices without bothering to buy food or actually feed kids. And that got extended into some of these other programs like the Housing Stabilization Program, or some of these other programs like Addiction Recovery, where they're billing for services not provided, billing for goods not provided. And the government, state government, was just paying the invoices, no questions asked.
No questions asked. Enough of the fake news sob stories over the illegal Somalis in Minnesota. Rapid response 47 6 hours ago, quote, I would describe Abdi as the friendliest guy I know. 20 seconds later, he was convicted of stealing a vehicle, shoplifting, and other offenses. Time to go home, Abdi.
46. This week, the Department of Homeland Security's Operation Metro Surge hits the Twin Cities. The agency announcing ICE arrested 12 of the worst. Among them, this man, 46-year-old Abdul Qadir Sharif Abdi, who DHS describes as a current gang member.
How would you describe him?
I would describe Abdi as the friendliest guy that I know. He was very welcoming to me.
Corey says she met Abdi at an addiction recovery meeting in 2016. Once they started that journey, they turned to working towards helping others achieve sobriety.
I wanted to change, and Abdi showed me proof that that was possible.
Court documents show Abdi came to the United States from Somalia as a refugee in 1996. He faced deportation multiple times, convicted of stealing a vehicle, shoplifting, and other offenses between 1999 and 2006. Each time he was ultimately released, given deportation to Somalia was not reasonably foreseeable at the time. This week, the Department of Homeland Security's
yeah, nothing to see here, right? Here is the Secretary of the Treasury on Face the Nation discussing the massive Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota. Oh, yes, my friends, it is federal now.
But a lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, and donated to A.G. Ellison. But they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are...
Mortgage-backed security? What do you mean?
Sorry?
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas, and we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. The Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, oh, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Let's not glance over what he said about. Let's not glance over what he said about Ilhan.
I can tell you that it's terrible. The Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, "Oh, it was very It was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, she was gaslighting the American people, the Treasury Secretary declaring it. And here's more from that interview, the possibility of money from the scandal being funneled to foreign terrorist organization. Giggles, here she is, Ilhan Omar, on Face the Nation. So check this out. You got the Treasury Secretary, right? On Face the Nation, and then you have Ilhan Omar on Face the Nation at the same time. Back-to-back interviews. They were in the same building at the same time, and he was just going, yeah, she was gaslighting America, and now she's asked the question on Face the Nation. This is good stuff.
House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link. He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a
link... She giggles. Did you catch that?
To look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment.
Look at her looking around the room. She's searching for an answer. She knows damn well what was going on in her district, in that state. Oh, you can't just like fleece the federal government of billions of dollars and have absolutely no clue, especially if it's part of your own community. All of a sudden, what? Are like Somalis rolling around Minnesota in Rolls Royces? In private jets? I mean, where did that $1 billion go? Oh, that's right. It went to go fund terrorism.
Because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system.
So yeah, she's redirecting. She says, "Oh, it's the FBI's fault. It's the court system's fault." But that doesn't change the fact that it happened in your backyard with your native people. You see how she's blaming other people, except the actual people that were doing it? Oh boy, dude, she's cooked. Ilhan Omar is cooked. This is going to be the end of her. If you thought the marriage certificate, that's Obama. The marriage certificate, marrying her brother. I mean, that's small potatoes compared to this cover-up that she's actively running, in my humble opinion.
Not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges. And so I do know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been
the accusation has always been there. Well, now we know the accusation is there, and everyone's finally talking about it. It's just an accusation, though. People are talking about it.
And there, in those accusations,
House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary.
Dude, Omar is toast. Oh yeah. Let's check in. Okay, we're gonna get to Stephen Miller in a second, but Dr. Oz, right? This, he is the administrator for the centers.
It's true.
What's his title officially? What's his official
true.
title? Hang on, I can't see it. It's okay. Administrator for for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So this all happened he's now the head of that organization. So all this fraud happened against his agency. And Dr. Oz.
A Somali fraud ring in Minnesota stole over $1 billion from Medicaid.
God.
How did this happen? Well, Medicaid programs are run by the states, which in Minnesota means the Tim Walz administration. Governor Walz and the state's other Democrats rely on Somali votes to get elected, so they decided to look the other way because they were afraid of, quote-unquote, political backlash. Don't take my word for it. That's what a Somali-American fraud investigator told the New York Times. When these scammers realized that nobody was guarding the cash register, they went gangbusters. One program designed to provide housing stabilization assistance to patients ballooned to $104 million, when 4 years ago it was projected to cost only $2.6 million. Some of these taxpayer funds may have even ended up in the hands of a Somalian terrorist group. Scary stuff. When CMS became aware of the housing program situation, Minnesota insisted it could clean up its own mess. A few months ago, it admitted it could not. So we stepped in to shut down the fraud-infested housing initiative. Today, we're taking action on more than a dozen other programs, which I've outlined in the post below. Our message to Walz is clear. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change, because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence. This administration will never stop fighting to protect
look under the couch for spare change. How about looking for a hairpin for your handcuffs? All right? Because that's what Tim Walz deserves. Come on, guys. You got over $1 billion in fraud, and you're telling him to pick up the tab? No. This is criminal to the highest levels in that state. Please, guys, step up your game. It's time for the perp walks. All of them. Okay? Walz, Ellison, Ilhan, all of them.
Vulnerable Americans who rely on these programs and the taxpayers who fund them. We're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse.
Crush it. Oh, we're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh, that sounds great. I like Dr. Oz, but come on. We're going to crush it. No. We want arrests. Stephen Miller, 48 hours ago. The single greatest theft ever.
The scams. Based on what we have found so far, we believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes. And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history.
On a scale never before seen in American history.
The total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme, and we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, And this is a significant undercount, by the way. 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare. But that's likely a significant undercount of just how much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing on this country. Based on...
Oh, man. Stephen Miller, always on point. Here he is. This is going to be a case in point for the argument for President Trump.
Through whether it be, this scandal is going to rock the core of Minnesota politics and American politics. We are going to be able to show through whether it be willful blindness, whether it be deliberately turning the other way, or whether it be direct knowledge, we are going to show how Democrat politicians, Democrat bureaucracies, Democrat political systems, and the Somali refugee population ripped off the American people, stole countless taxpayer dollars, and engaged in scams that boggle the mind, scams that we can scarcely even conceive of or imagine in their brazenness. This truly underscores the extent to which the Democrat Party has used migration as a weapon against the American people to gain political power at the expense of American citizens, stealing their money, stealing their votes, stealing their sovereignty. This is going to be case in point for the argument that President Trump has made about why we must stop mass third-world migration into this country. It is a tool the Democrat Party has used to rob the American people blind. This scandal...
my goodness. This is blowing up bigger than I ever thought that it would. Here is fake news. Dana Bash, CNN, running cover for a Somali gangbanging, wife-beating illegal that ICE has gotten off the streets in Minneapolis over just the past week.
I've talked to several state and local officials who've said that the number of Somali immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally there is very, very small, and that this is about scaring people more than it is about arresting criminals. So what have you actually accomplished with this operation so far in Minnesota?
Well, we're just starting, and I disagree. The fact that people, even we don't know how many illegal Somalis there are because, remember, in the last 4 years in Joe Biden, there's over 2 million gotaways, known gotaways, people caught on video, drone traffic, or sensor traffic that crossed the border illegally and weren't apprehended, weren't vetted. And so, what President Trump's doing is fixing the last 4 years of the open border where millions of people are released in this country, many we don't know who they are. So we're going to do the same thing in the Twin Cities we've done across the nation. We're going to focus on those illegal alien public safety threats in these cities. And if they weren't a sanctuary city, many of these people would be apprehended in the safety and security of the county jail. But because you're a sanctuary city, we got to send more resources there to flood the zone because it takes a whole...
They got to flood the zone. They're doing it, Chicago, New York. They're doing it in Memphis. They're doing it all over. Ilhan Omar, more from her, says Somalis in Minnesota are actually the victims of the massive fraud.
Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen.
Oh, yeah. There are quite a few Somalis who are benefiting from that program. All right, Ilhan? And they're all in the Middle East making bombs right now.
And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Of the 87 people
they're really
charged...
upset and they're angry and they're victims, but all of her buddies in that community were cashing all of the checks. Fox News. Inside Little Mogadishu, Minnesota's beleaguered Somali community under the cloud of fraud and Trump attacks, Fox News headline. This is Little Mogadishu. a neighborhood of Minneapolis packed with Somalis, where the Islamic call to prayer is publicly broadcast every single day. What's interesting about that is that there was outcry when that started. I remember reporting on it, and people rose up to block it. Okay, people obviously not part of that religion did not want to hear that every single day. And you know what the argument was that allowed this to continue? No different than church bells. That was the argument that was made. And that's why this continues. But, I mean, church bells, it's just a tone. It's just a gong, a sound, church bells. Definitely very different. And church bells are not designed as a call to prayer. Let's be clear about that as well. They aren't. Church bells ring, when someone gets married is an act of celebration, or there may be a church bell that goes off at, noon or 3 o'clock or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, not telling people to face Mecca. Big difference here. So here's the most damning part of this entire thing. Regular Minnesotans are asking a simple question. One resident said he got a letter demanding $200 in back taxes and called the state immediately, worried that they would think he was committing fraud. Meanwhile, Somali networks were stealing billions. The malls of Minneapolis virtually empty after ICE announced operation. The rats are scattering, and Ilhan Omar's political world is not just under scrutiny anymore. It is absolutely collapsing. So the story matters because it exposes the rot at the heart of the sanctuary state model. You see, for years we were told mass migration was compassion. We were told diversity was strength. We were told anyone who questioned it was a bigot. And now we see the truth. Organized criminal networks embedded themselves inside state agencies, NGOs, and political campaigns. They stole over $1 billion from Medicaid and child nutrition programs. They fabricated thousands of fake children, operated in broad daylight while Democrat leaders looked the other way. And when confronted, Ilhan Omar laughed. Maine Democrat Dika Dahak openly declared her goal is to get American taxpayers to fund Somalia. This is not immigration. This is a pipeline of money and power flowing out of America. So here's my question. We could talk about it in the comments. Should officials who enabled this fraud face criminal charges? I think you know my answer. I'd love to hear yours. Drop it in the comments and support independent media at the Next News merch shop. You will find the link in the description. Okay, we do not have any super chats to speak of. Who will be the next one to be acknowledged by Gary Franchi himself? Whose name and message will be broadcast on the screen for the world to see and spoken by my own mouth? Will it be you? I hope so. All right. We've got to get into the next topic. Yeah. Talking about twisting narratives. As you're watching this right now, an $82 billion hostile takeover is underway, and it has nothing to do with business. Netflix, the streaming giant already infamous for pushing cultural agendas into your living room, is now making its move to seize Warner Brothers, HBO, and the most powerful storytelling franchises in American history. Now, if the deal goes through, The people who already control what you watch are about to control everything you think. And there's only one man standing in their way. Now, here's what's at stake. Benny Johnson rang the alarm. If Netflix acquires Warner Brothers and HBO, the Obamas, who have a 9-figure deal with Netflix, Susan Rice, who sits on Netflix board, and DNC mega donors gain control over Batman, Superman, Harry Potter, and Game of Thrones, Looney Tunes, The Matrix, Sopranos, right? Every cultural weapon Hollywood has ever created, they own it all. Jack Posobiec put it bluntly, Americans will not read a Supreme Court ruling, but they will binge watch an 8-part Netflix miniseries about it. Control the streaming platforms, and you control the minds of the masses. Analysts are calling this deal obviously illegal, designed not to succeed, but freeze competitors for 2 years while Netflix consolidates cultural dominance. It's not entertainment. This is ideological warfare. And while media empires fight to control what Americans think, there is one thing they cannot take from you: your ability to prepare. Now, this Christmas, give the gift of food security with My Patriot Supply. It's called the Buy One, Gift Two Christmas Special, and you need to jump on this. All month long, when you buy one emergency food kit, you get 2 more absolutely free, perfect for gifts. Grab a 4-week supply for yourself, and they include 2 one-week meal kits free. Now, these make fantastic gifts for anyone who loves preparedness or anyone who needs a nudge in the right direction. This offer is only available for the holiday season. Visit preparewithgary.com and grab yours today. That's preparewithgary.com. It's linked below. Now, here's who threw a wrench into their whole plan. President Trump. Enter President Trump. When asked if Netflix should be allowed to buy Warner Brothers, Trump declared he would personally be involved in that decision, citing the massive market share a combined entity would possess. And of course, right on cue, the establishment media melted down. Aaron Sorkin complained that presidents do not get involved in these decisions. But Trump is the only person standing between Netflix and total cultural domination. Meanwhile, Paramount Skydance launched a hostile counterbid at $30 a share, warning that Netflix control over sports rights and franchises would kill Hollywood and wipe out linear television entirely. So, Sorkin on Trump. Trump said yesterday he's going to be part of making a decision about Netflix transaction with Warner Brothers. Let's check in with this news clip. NEC Director Kevin Hassett.
Hey, Kevin, one other question we've been batting around the table this morning was the president said just yesterday that he was going to be part of making the decision about this Netflix transaction with Warner Brothers. And at least the comment that we were making in the past is that the president, this president and presidents prior, I believe have never at least publicly declared their involvement in these decisions. They've historically been left to the antitrust department with inside the Department of Justice. So how different is this, and how should we think about that?
Wait a minute. Of course, antitrust division, Department of Justice. Presidents don't get involved. Well, guess what? This one gets involved. He stepped up. He's the head of that agency. He's the head of that department. He's the chief executive. So if he wants to, nose around and sniff out the monopoly, then he frickin' will. All right, Sorkin? Let's hear I bet you that Hassett's probably going to say something similar to what I just said. Let's see.
I don't think it's, just rare for presidents to have opinions about big society-changing mergers. But in the end, the Justice Department is going to study things like the Herfindahl Index, the concentration in this industry, the amount of competition that is reduced because of this big merger, and, what the responses of all the other companies that are playing in this space might be. That's going to be something that goes on for quite a while. And I think the president is just very interested in making sure that there's a lot of analysis to make sure that we make the right choice.
And that's because there's a law in the books against monopolies. President Trump, commander-in-chief, he's the guy who has to execute laws. That's what the executive branch does. So He weighs his opinion and says, yeah, you guys figure it out. That's your job over there. You figure out the Snuffleupagus index, and you figure out the majority and the who did the what and where. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, yeah, they buy it. They're going to have a majority of this entire industry, much like Google has the monopoly on search. Right? Anyway.
There's more to it now, though, the relationship that a company can have with the president than in past administrations. I think that's what Andrew's alluded to. Is it different than it's been in the past, do you think, the influence that President Trump...
I haven't been inside any other administration than the Trump administration, but I could say something about the Trump administration is that it's about the most transparent administration I've seen in my lifetime.
That's what we agree with, Kevin.
And so what the other guys were doing probably, is they weren't telling you. And so it's harder to sell. But Mr. Trump let you know how he feels.
No wonder you got no answers. Because they weren't talking. President Trump openly speaks about it. The Netflix Warner Brothers deal, according to M.V. Piers, who's that? M.V. Piers, columnist, editor at The Information, Wall Street Journal alumnus, longtime media reporter. He says the stupidest deal. The stupidest deal.
Streaming. This is such a stupid deal. I'm even beginning to wonder whether Netflix knows this deal will not get through, but they are just trying to screw up Paramount.
So you don't think the deal will go through at all?
I don't think there's any chance that the government is going to allow the largest streaming service to buy one of the other very big streaming services, particularly as Paramount, which was competing to buy Warner, is close to the administration and will obviously do a very intense job in arguing why this deal should be opposed. They actually admitted this morning there's an awful lot of overlap between the two subscriber groups. So this doesn't give Netflix anything except debt and the need to spend the next 18 months negotiating with the government to try to get this deal approved.
The overlap in subscribers. So let's play this out. Netflix buys it all, and they absorb all of those subscribers. They merge the systems, and then what? They lose all those people. Don't have to pay anymore because it's on all platforms. How does that work? I'm sure some, smart guy over there has got it all figured out how to keep those subscriptions running along. Here's Jack Posobiec. Says people don't read Supreme Court rulings, but they'll watch a Netflix miniseries on it.
People aren't. I just think it's very funny how much people care about TV. Yes, because people do. That's the point. That's the point we're making. Whether
they do,
yeah,
they just do.
Yeah, it's hugely important. Michael in our studio goes, I care. Yes.
Well, where
that's
do people get their worldview from, right? People aren't going to sit and you talk about birthright citizenship, right? People aren't sitting around and reading Supreme Court rulings. They're watching Netflix miniseries, right? But they will watch a Netflix miniseries on it, or they will sit down and watch whatever HBO's got on it. So that's why it's important. It's because that's where people get their story of the world, their story of who we are, their story of who they are. It's where they get their views on religion. It's where and by the way, and studies have shown, go look at Marshall McLuhan talking about this in the 60s, that people have gotten their worldview from mass media since the 1950s on. This started with radio, then it moved to television, and today streaming is just the newest iteration of that, sort of streaming plus social media. So if you're not paying attention to who's in control of this, then you're not paying attention to who's in control of the minds of the masses. And that's what this is about. Who is in control of the minds of the masses?
Who is in control?
I just think it's very
Imagine
funny.
Imagine if that merger goes through. Smaller and even more consolidated group controlling it. One says that the Netflix bid is obviously illegal. The real strategy, freezing a top competitor for up to 2 years, weakening Warner Brothers and shifting power towards Netflix. Why do you think, Dr. Zain Hassan, why do you think Netflix is buying Warner Brothers? I'm going to guess it has to do with artificial intelligence. Okay.
A couple months ago, the reason why Netflix is buying Warner Brothers Discovery is not because they want Game of Thrones or they want Superman. It's because of artificial intelligence. Disney announced a couple months ago that they're going to allow users and people to create their own AI-driven TikToks and Reels and content based on their libraries. Netflix does not have a library. Buying Warner Bros. Discovery creates that library. Wow. The reason for this post is not necessarily why they're buying it, but it's because even major players like this are getting ready for the AI revolution. That is what's coming in the near future, whether you believe it, whether you think it's BS, it's happening. What do you guys think? I love you guys.
It's about acquiring the library for Netflix. Netflix set to purchase Warner Brothers for $82.7 billion. Netflix is paying $72 billion in cash when Warner Brothers is worth only $60 billion. Why? Another says it's all about AI. This is the Maverick approach.
Well, so Netflix is about to acquire Warner Brothers for almost $83 billion. And this deal is bigger than what you think it is. Now, this deal includes $72 billion in cash, but Warner Brothers is only worth $60 billion. So why would they pay more than what they're worth? Well, I think I know why. It's all about AI. On one hand, yeah, you could say it's about over 100 years about content, IP, bragging rights, but it's much deeper than that. Now, not only Netflix already has a partnership with OpenAI, but other universities and tech firms for AI research and development that target computer vision, natural language processing, script analysis, casting, and visual effects, just to name a few. Which means all that new intellectual property that they have now, they can feed to their AI to learn, to create, to the likes of Superman, Batman, The Sopranos, Bugs Bunny, Harry Potter, and that's just scratching the surface. And make no mistake about it, this is a bigger push to the content creator economy, which they're targeting as well by bringing exclusive podcasts to the platform, in which the podcast industry right now is worth $38 billion and growing. Even Disney is getting in on the action. They said recently, soon the company will allow Disney Plus subscribers to create user-generated content and to consume user-generated content, aka content creators. And just to give you guys more context, the entire creator economy is worth $250 billion, and that's set to double in the next 12 months. And a bigger question is, where does this leave everybody? Being that if you're not a content creator, you're either losing your job to AI or making money with AI. And this is kind of a telltale sign, being that the US government let go over 300,000 people, UPS 48,000 people, Amazon 30,000 people, Intel 24,000 people, and the list just keeps going. All in all, this is about market share and consolidation, going from the old to the new when it comes to movies, media, music, news. Everything we come to know is changing before our very eyes. So the word of the day is reskill. Make sure you guys get in my Telegram where I teach you guys how to reskill.
You know, I remember when Netflix started. It was just, you go to their website, you pick out some new releases. They send you, you have a list of new releases. They send you the actual DVD in the mail. You watch it, you keep it as long as you want. And then when you're done, you send it back and they send you the next one on your list. I mean, that's how they started. President Trump says he would have a role in whether the proposed merger occurs. Let's see.
And also, should they be allowed to buy Warner Brothers? Should Netflix?
Well, that's the question. They have a very big market share. And when they have Warner Brothers, you know, that share goes up a lot. So I don't know. That's going to be for some economists to tell. And also, and I'll be involved in that decision too. They have a very big market share.
Did he make any guarantees to you about the merger if they do merge?
No, not at all. He came up. He was in the Oval Office last week. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a great person. But he's done one of the greatest jobs in the history of movies and other things. He's got a lot of interesting things happening aside from what you're talking about. But it is a big market share. There's no question about it. It could be a problem.
That was President Trump yesterday taking questions at the Kennedy Center Honors. I think we have another clip here of the president. Let's see.
So I don't know. That met with Ted. I think he's fantastic. I think he's, in the history of Hollywood, has really been almost, you could say, nothing like what he's done. They have a very big market share. And when they have Warner Brothers, you know, that share goes up a lot. So I don't know. That's going to be for some economists to tell. And also, and I'll be involved in that decision too.
Come on, guys. Look at Melania. She looks beautiful, right? We don't see enough of her. I'm glad she's out with the president.
Big market share. And he's got a lot of interesting things happening aside from what you're talking about.
But it is a big market share. There's no question about it.
Mr.
It could be a problem.
No question, it could be a problem, he says. The Netflix Warner Brother deal is not something that is good for consumers. Innovator capital management strategist Tim Urbanowicz says it's not politically positive for the president.
Clearly, it's. Let me just focus in on Netflix for a second. Is there any interest in, if you are long Netflix, do you stay long on this, or is this just dead money now as they are going to war with Paramount?
Well, Brian, I think this raises a lot of question marks for us on Netflix. Clearly, it's good for Warner Brothers shareholders. You look at the pop that we saw Friday, what we saw on Monday. Clearly, this is a good thing here. But when we look at Netflix, I think what was very interesting, Brian, is if you look at the president's comments about this deal, it was not favorable. And I think it really, draws back to the fact that he doesn't want prices going up for consumers. That's a very politically sensitive topic. And for us, that's really a big question mark, is what is Netflix going to do here? How are they going to be able to increase prices, increase margins? I just don't see it, Brian. It's not something that would excite me as a Netflix shareholder, but obviously others have different opinions.
Tim, this is I'm reading these statements to what Netflix put out last week, what Paramount put out, and my take is, this is all BS. Of course prices are going up. You mean to tell me if Paramount spends this amount of money to buy Warner Brothers, my cable bill is going to suddenly get cheaper?
It's not getting cheaper, Brian. The prices are definitely going up somehow, some way. And again, I think
that's exactly what I asked earlier. If this merger happens, what happens to all those subscribers, right? Oh, 2 days ago, Netflix just killed Hollywood, pulling off the most insane power move of 2025. Streaming wars are over. $82.7 billion for Warner Brothers, but nobody understands what actually happened. Oh, it looks like we have Brian Stelter.
This is something that could affect hundreds of millions of television viewers all around the world, because everybody now is a streamer in one way or another, and most people are glued to Netflix already. HBO Max, one of the other big streaming platforms, would be coming together with Netflix if this deal is consummated. And right now that is a very big if, because this deal is heading into an uncertain regulatory environment. But let's get into that in just a minute. First, let's talk about how
I've had enough of you. Let's go and see. Benny Johnson says, red alert for every parent in America. Netflix is close to acquiring Warner Brothers and HBO. If it closes, the Obamas, who have 9-figure Netflix deals, Susan Rice on the board, DNC megadonors, gain control over Batman and Superman, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Scooby-Doo, Looney Tunes, and many others. They're already inserting trans and grooming themes into safe kids shows. Imagine what they'll do with these classics. He says, I don't want to see Batman become Antifa Man or Superman become trans man. It's a monopoly-led cultural capture. DOJ must block it under antitrust. Parents, cancel Netflix now. Don't fund the takeover. So here's the reality. Netflix is paying $72 billion in cash for an asset worth $60 billion. Why the rush? Why the overpay? Tech analysts say it's about AI training next-generation storytelling algorithms on Warner's massive library. Cultural analysts say it's ideological, turning HBO Max into Netflix 2.0, a woke indoctrination machine with a DC Comics paint job. Either way, if the merger succeeds, say goodbye to any non-ideological storytelling in mainstream media. Now, the story matters because it's not about streaming subscriptions. It's really about who controls reality. Netflix has spent years pushing cultural engineering into American homes. They've normalized agendas, rewritten history, and shaped how an entire generation views the world. Now they want to absorb the last major studio holding the line against their ideology. Warner Brothers, HBO, DC Comics, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, every franchise that still has roots in traditional storytelling. Now, if the deal goes through, overnight, everything becomes filtered through Netflix worldview. The worldview of the Obamas and Susan Rice, Hollywood activists, Silicon Valley megadonors. President Trump says he will weigh in, and he may be the only break in the system with the authority to say stop. So here's my question. We can talk about it. Should Trump block the Netflix-Warner Brothers merger, yes or no? Let's talk about it in the comments and gear up at the Next News merch shop. You'll find it linked down below. Okay, checking on Super Chats. We have Ruby Hoove. Hey, have a great one, everyone. $5. Thank you so much for that. Okay, moving right along. We have let's see here. Okay, $7 in Super Chats. Happy Monday. All right, let's keep going. We got more news. Oh, Illinois. As you're watching this, a scandal so momentous it defies belief. A sitting American governor has been caught releasing murderers and violent predators back into American neighborhoods. Not by accident, not through incompetence, but deliberately to hide them from federal immigration enforcement. And as these criminals walk free, Democrat lawmakers in New York are openly teaching illegal aliens how to evade ICE. This is not immigration policy. This is organized sabotage of public safety. And you need to hear who is behind it. So here's what's at stake, though. Since President Trump took office, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has released over 1,700 criminal aliens with active ICE detainers. These were not low-level offenders. These were individuals charged with murder and sexual violence in other countries, predators who targeted women and children. And Pritzker released them deliberately to hide them from federal authorities. Meanwhile, in New York, Zoran Mandami issued a full video briefing, instructing illegal aliens on exactly what to say and what not to say and how to block deportation efforts. And he declared New York will always be a city for all immigrants. Translations? Laws don't apply here. So while these politicians protect criminals, ICE officers face death threats up now to 1,200%. They're being shot at, attacked, targeted daily, but they continue the mission. And while Democrats release dangerous criminals into our streets, your gut is going to take a beating this holiday season. Between office parties, family gatherings, and New Year's Eve, rich foods and alcohol are a digestive disaster that is waiting to happen. And that's why you need Good Brew. It's the only probiotic that survives in your hot morning coffee. Co-founder William Doe nearly called 911 when severe acid reflux caused food to lodge in his throat. Doctors wanted him on dangerous antacids for life. Instead, he discovered BC30 probiotic that actually works in coffee. Within a week, his acid reflux was gone. Every morning, I drink a scoop, and you should too. So fight back with one scoop that delivers 1 billion CFUs of beneficial bacteria plus organic fiber. No more post-party bloating. Visit goodbrew.com for your free travel size plus 10% off with code NEXTNEWS. That's Goodbrew, GOODBRU.com. It's linked below. But let's talk about the crisis because it extends far beyond Illinois and New York. In Alabama, 82 illegal alien truck drivers have been detained on ICE holds since late October. 12 of them did not have a license of any kind. Think about that. Unvetted foreign nationals behind the wheel of 80,000-pound machines on American highways. In Tennessee, immigration arrests have more than doubled. And in New Orleans, local police are now working hand in hand with ICE in Operation Catahoula Crunch, arresting high-priority criminal aliens that Biden-era officials ignored. The crackdown is absolutely accelerating. Here we have it. Governor Pritzker being exposed since Trump took office. Illinois Governor Pritzker released illegal alien filth back into the community, totaling 1,700 with active ICE detainers. What is wrong with J.B. Pritzker, besides his obvious love of the buffet line?
17 Your report now on sanctuary policies in the state of Illinois. Immigration and Customs Enforcement saying that Governor Pritzker is overseeing the release of more than 1,700 dangerous criminal illegal aliens since the 20th of January, including murderers, pedophiles, and kidnappers, sending them back into neighborhoods and putting American lives at risk.
This is my state. 1,700 of them. All now back on the street. Here is the new mayor-elect of New York City, the communist Zoran Mandami, issuing a statement to immigrants in New York City on how to evade ICE and what to say and do to avoid deportation. Sounds like obstruction of justice to me, but, you know, I'm just a guy over here behind the camera.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge.
Okay, that's standard. That's standard. That's standard. Yeah. I mean, he's got to educate, I guess. Well, if you're illegal, you don't know the law, so what would they know? I mean, I actually took a Constitution class in 8th grade. That's where I learned about these things. Oh, boy.
That looks like this.
Okay, so he's showing us, okay, guys, this is what a warrant looks like. They have to show you this. Wow.
Does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. You have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed.
How come you're not speaking in Spanish, bro? Oh, you got the Spanish subtitles going.
Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this.
Oh, we got more.
And tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is
more
false.
Paperwork.
ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, am I free to go? Repeatedly until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation.
Okay, so this is the guy who was just kissing Trump's ass in the Oval Office. Back to his old tricks. And yes, Governor Pritzker, 1,700 illegals released. Drive-by media 10 hours ago, DHS official Lauren Bies calls out the media lies about ICE while defending criminal aliens. Trump's team is pushing forward and deporting every illegal alien that they find. An official message from the Department of Homeland Security.
Hi, I'm Lauren Biss, Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security. And this week, we've got some new fake news stories to debunk. So let's get into it. First, another false family separation story going around. ICE does not separate families. Parents are given a choice. They can either be removed with their child or place them with a safe adult they designate. We encourage all parents to use the CBP Home app to leave now with their families and receive a free $1,000 stipend. In this case, these illegal aliens from China were issued a lawful family removal order. The parent refused to board the plane and got aggressive, tried to flee, and even endangered his own child. As a result of the parent's aggressive actions, the child was placed in ORR custody. This is no different than if a U.S. citizen parent committed a crime. Next, the LA Times falsely reported that our law enforcement are not experiencing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults against them. This is a bold-faced lie. The facts and images speak for themselves. These are just a few examples of the horrific acts of violence being committed against our brave law enforcement. And finally, the viral video claiming ICE arrested a woman who was trying to report a sexual assault. Here's the real story. She is an illegal alien with 8 prior arrests, including for drugs, fraud, forgery, a stolen car, and a fake ID. Her visa expired in 2016. She's had a final order of removal since October 2025. Tune in next week where we debunk more lies and fake news stories.
An official message from the Department of Homeland Security with a nice little background track and keep you going, keep your foot stomping while you're crushing the fake news with it. Oh, here we have this. Oh, this is crazy. Truck drivers have been detained, 82 of them in Alabama on ICE holds since October. 12 did not even have a license in Alabama.
This crackdown will hope 82 truck drivers have been detained in Alabama on ICE hold since late October. It is part of a new state crackdown on commercial drivers. Governor Kay Ivey says 12 of those detained did not have a license of any kind. Our Shelby Myers in the studio now. And Shelby, you spoke with the Alabama Trucking Association about this.
Yeah, I did, Camera. The president and CEO says this crackdown will hopefully weed out what he calls bad actors in the trucking industry.
Multiple fatal truck crashes led the U.S. Department of Transportation to promise a crackdown on issuing commercial driver's licenses, or CDLs. One of those deadly crashes happened in Thomasville over the summer. A Ukrainian-born truck driver ran a red light. He crashed into several cars, killing 2 people. He was in the U.S. on a visa and had a valid license, but he does not speak English. English proficiency is required for a CDL. Alabama joining in on the crackdown. Governor Kay Ivey announcing a partnership between ALEA and ICE. They're targeting major interstate corridors where truck traffic is heavy. Governor Ivey says troopers referred 242 people to ICE during 2 operations over the past 2 months. Of those, 82 drivers were detained based on their immigration status, and 12 of those did not even have a driver's license of any kind.
What the hell is going on? How does that even happen? How does that even happen? 12 didn't even have driver's licenses. See how they whittled that number down? 282 to 12? God.
When I talk to truck drivers and professional drivers and small business owners, they're frustrated because they're in a tough economy. On one side, they get attacked by lawyers and frivolous lawsuits, and on another, unfair competition for people who break the rules and don't operate fairly and unsafely.
Mark Colson heads the Alabama Trucking Association. He says some foreign drivers' work visas expire, but their commercial license stay valid. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has issued a directive to states to align the 2 timelines. Duffy says he is also planning to shut down about 3,000 drivers' training schools nationwide. He says they failed to meet training standards, and some are accused of falsifying training data. The
3,000 schools about to get shut down. They're just pumping out these licenses. Tennessee, new data shows a sharp climb in immigration enforcement across the state. Buckle up.
News 2's Caitlin. Well, new data shows a sharp climb in immigration enforcement across the state. Deportation Data Project got a copy of ICE arrest records through mid-October. News 2's Ken Quisberry breaks down the trends here in Tennessee.
We knew that we would see an increase in numbers of people being arrested, detained, and deported.
President Trump has promised to deport 1 million people a year.
President Trump has been very clear from the time that he came into office that he was going to secure our border, stop the invasion that was happening under the Biden administration, and make sure that we were deporting and bringing to justice illegal criminal aliens.
And in Tennessee, the Deportation Data Project shows immigration arrests have more than doubled since last year. Statewide, October was the highest month this year, with more than 800 arrests.
Well, new data shows a sharp climb in immigration.
And we have more. Ilhan Omar expecting immigrants to assimilate. Oh, no. This is unbelievable. Wait till you hear this.
At scale, I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
I want to ask you something else.
I'm Italian and Irish, okay? So I know about the stories that were told, you know, from my grandparents and my great-grandparents about the persecution and the, I guess, racism towards Italians and Irish people back a long time ago. But did you catch what she said about the Nazis?
The architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said, unthinkable borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands. What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people.
Yeah, just default to the basic operating system in her brain. Oh, the NPC vibes are strong with Ilhan Omar. Another incredible development, federal immigration agents getting massive assistance from local police in New Orleans.
The highest
is there with more. Hi, Garrett. Good morning.
Dana, good morning to you. Pretty much all weekend long, if Border Patrol was out on the streets, protesters were right behind them. And we'll show you some video of that. You can see this is over in the city of Kenner, just outside New Orleans, where this operation has been spending a lot of time. Kenner has the highest concentration of Hispanic residents in the state. And you can see Commander Greg Bovino and his team going door to door in that area, looking for specific targets. And almost everywhere they went, a crowd was following them, blowing whistles, honking horns, yelling into megaphones, trying to warn the community that federal agents were in the area.
And I pay college for my kids. You know how much taxes I pay a year?
Mixed order. Yeah, at one point, some of the demonstrators even followed Bovino and his agents into a gas station to confront them as they were buying drinks.
And we're not going to keep on stopping. We're going to keep on following you. So.
Got it. Yeah, one of the things that makes this operation unique is that outside of New Orleans, local police departments are helping the feds with some of the immigration enforcement. Kenner's police department says its officers working with ICE arrested this high priority target, a fugitive with multiple warrants for robbery and domestic abuse. The city's police chief tells Fox his town is the complete opposite of a sanctuary city.
Look, I'm an elected police chief. I work for 70,000 people. I know.
Is there with more.
Let's go. New Orleans, baby. Making it happen. Tom Holman. Fake news, Dana Bash whines about the tactics of ICE heroes arresting criminals, illegal scum.
Our own eyes. And then there's just the aggressive tactics that we are seeing in video after video. You're comfortable with those tactics that we're all seeing with our own eyes?
Look, threats on ICE officers were up.
Are you comfortable with the tactics? Are you comfortable with what your eyes see? It's law enforcement, honey. Okay?
%. They're being doxxed on social media. They're getting death threats every day. They've been attacked. They've been shot at. And these officers out there look for the worst of the worst, so they're protecting themselves. And I think they're following the law. And if any ICE officer, Border Patrol, acts out of policy or does something inappropriate, they'll be held accountable. But we got to remember, I mean, they're under attack, and we're at a place in this country where all of a sudden the ones who enforce the law are the bad guys, and the ones who broke the laws are victims. I'm going to trust the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol who've been trained very well. They're doing the right thing. But I'll say again, if someone does something inappropriate, out of policy, illegal, they need to be held accountable. But I simply think I haven't seen that. And again, I'm not in every arrest. I'm not in every operation. I trust the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol to do the right thing.
And they're just the aggressive.
That's what they do. The aggressive. They're so aggressive. Huh. The Trump administration, Tom Homan, still with Dana Bash. Over 62,000 children found by the Trump administration.
Even being I look at the numbers every day. On Friday, I looked at the numbers. There's over 62,000 children found by the Trump administration. Children that weren't even being looked for under the Biden administration. President Trump saved over 62,000 children's lives. Some of these children were in sex trafficking, we found them. Some were in forced labor. Some were being mistreated. I can't even discuss some of the mistreatment we found out about. President Trump, again, proves why he's the greatest president in my lifetime. Over 62,000 children rescued by President Trump. Again, children that were ignored and weren't being looked for under President Biden.
So here's the most heartbreaking revelation. You just saw Tom Homan announce the Trump administration has found over 62,000 children that the Biden administration was not even looking for. Some trapped in sex trafficking, some in forced labor. Homan said he can't even discuss some of the mistreatment that they uncovered. This is what sanctuary policies protected. This is what Pritzker enabled, and this is what Democrats defend. Now, the story matters because it exposes the true costs of sanctuary state policies. Governor Pritzker did not release these criminals by mistake. He did it to obstruct federal immigration enforcement. Murderers, sexual predators, those who prey on children. 1,700 of them with active ICE detainers dumped back into American communities, my own backyard. And while these monsters roam free, Democrat lawmakers in New York, the communist mayor of New York, are filming tutorials on how to evade arrest. Ilhan Omar says expecting immigrants to assimilate reminds her of the Nazis. This is the Democrat Party in 2025. They call ICE officers fascists while shielding child traffickers. Think about that. They lecture Americans, you and me, about compassion while 62,000 lost children are rescued from unspeakable abuse. You see, the mask is off now. It was never about immigration to begin with. This was about protecting a criminal pipeline at the expense of American safety. So here's my question. Should Governor Pritzker face federal charges for obstruction? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's have a conversation and support our work at the Next News merch shop. Link below. All right, looks like we got another super chat. Fran dropping $3. Thank you, Fran. We are at $10. $10. $90 away from our target tonight. Hey, we'll take what we can get here at the Next News Network. We appreciate you guys. All right, let's keep going. We got to hit our final topic of the night. So the clock is ticking if you want to sneak those super chats in under the wire, because there is a lot to talk about right now. While you're watching this, the narco-terrorism crackdown we've been tracking just went supernova. President Trump's military strikes against cartel drug boats in the Caribbean have Democrats in full-blown meltdown mode. You see, they're defending traffickers on national television, calling them victims of economic hardship. And now an Obama-era DEA official has been criminally indicted for laundering $12 million for the cartels. The deep state pipeline is being exposed, and it's happening in real time. And the apologists are freaking out. Now, here's what's at stake. You see, tens of thousands of Americans are dying every year from fentanyl and cartel traffic poison. President Trump campaigned to stop it, and now he is delivering. Drug boats destroyed, cargo eliminated, traffickers neutralized. But instead of celebrating, Democrats are losing their minds. Whoopi Goldberg complained that America does not feel safe because ICE is arresting people and the military is blowing up boats in the Caribbean. Why would Whoopi feel unsafe? She's not a Venezuelan drug smuggler. Congressman Seth Moulton went even further, suggesting on national television that Trump will start murdering American citizens. A sitting congressman parroting cartel propaganda while their supply lines are being severed. Senator John Kennedy, he put it perfectly. Narco-terrorists are killing our children, and Democrats are acting like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. And while Trump fights the cartels poisoning American families, there is a way to fight back for your own health. After Jonathan Otto introduced me and my family to red light therapy, my wife and I experienced transformations we did not think possible. Her chronic pain, anxiety gone, my energy and recovery better than guys half my age. It's not a gimmick. Major medical journals show 300% faster healing and pain elimination in minutes. The same technology costs thousands of dollars at clinics, but Jonathan made it available for your home. His panels, I have one. They use 9 specific wavelengths with hospital-grade components and 0 EMF exposure. NASA researched it. FDA cleared it. So visit myredlight.com. Use code NNN for the best deal available. Get the healing technology changing our lives at myredlight.com, and make sure you use code NNN. But my friends, the lies keep unraveling. Senator Tammy Duckworth went on CNN claiming she has seen the classified video of the strikes. When pressed, she admitted she had not seen the actual footage. Caught lying in real time. Tom Cotton fired back at the Washington Post for publishing complete lies, demanding apologies for Secretary Hegseth and Admiral Mitch Bradley, a highly decorated Navy SEAL. And Congressman Jim Himes went on MSNBC to call the traffickers poor fellas who just lacked economic opportunity. These are narco-terrorists ferrying poison into America, and Democrats are giving them a pity party. Look at this. As you can see in this video, this fisherman is just dropping his crab pots. There's really good crabbing in the Caribbean. Can you see what's going on in this video? Of course, those aren't crab pots. This guy is dropping bales of cocaine right into the ocean. And look, you can see he's getting tracked quite well. Wow. So, okay. These are the people that the Democrats are defending. People like Whoopi Goldberg of The View. Where's my mop?
An ICE agent. So I don't know. I just feel like he's trying to hurt people's feelings to piss them off. That's not the way to do it. But I just want to say that, to me, it doesn't feel that much safer since we're blowing up boats in the Caribbean and ICE agents.
I just love it. It doesn't feel that much safer since they're blowing up boats in the Caribbean. Whoopi, do you have plans to take a boat into the Caribbean anytime soon? Are you going on a cruise or a fishing tour? Are you going to go check out those crystal blue waters? Is that what you're worried? Your next vacation? No. You're so far removed from that, and you're going to say, I'm scared. I'm scared. More bullshit propaganda being spewed from the beaks of the hens on The View.
To piss them off. That's not the way to do it. But I just want to say that to me, it doesn't feel that much safer since we're blowing up boats in the Caribbean and ICE agents have arrested nearly 75,000 people with no criminal records. It doesn't feel all that safe to me. Maybe these are the moves he thinks that are going to make America great again.
Yeah, he does, biatch. Oh, yeah, that's how you make America great. You scoop out the scum.
I mean, how much would Republicans have freaked out had Biden or Obama done any of those things?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. We can go back to Elian Gonzalez. Remember that? I mean, I remember that clearly. Remember that picture of the kid with the gun in his face, hiding in the closet, being held by his uncle, Cuban. I don't remember. Wow. Do you remember that? How are the Republicans responding in that moment? Were they condemning Bill Clinton? I don't remember. Maybe if we have a minute, we'll look it up. But let's continue with this mess. Here, you know what she's doing that? I'm going to find out.
I don't understand what the point is. Because what is he doing for us? Where's that Janet Jackson song? What have you done for me, America? I'm saying as America. What have you done for us lately?
Right.
Except pick up phony prizes to make yourself feel better.
Phony prizes. Phony show. The View. I'm still looking this up. Here is Democrat Seth Moulton suggesting President Trump will murder American citizens in the U.S. I'm looking up the how did Republicans react to the Elian Gonzalez incident.
Traffickers don't. I mean, look, the President of the United States and his Secretary of Defense are conducting murder on the high seas. They're committing murder, and Americans should care. Like, look, none of us like drug traffickers, but we have laws that say that drug traffickers don't get summarily executed. And if it's happening off the coast of America with people that we don't know, just give it time before Donald Trump starts doing this same kind of thing to people we do know right here at home. It matters if the President of the United States breaks the law.
Okay, so while that was playing, I got the answer. So there was, after the pre-dawn armed raid ordered by Attorney General Janet Reno under President Clinton, Republicans condemned the Elian Gonzalez raid as Gestapo tactics, same language we're seeing now from the Democrats on Trump's actions, called it police state behavior by the Clinton administration, a shocking show of force against a child and a family offering him sanctuary. The photo of the armed federal agent pointing a rifle at the fisherman holding Elian became an icon of Republican criticism. Republicans, especially Florida GOP figures, aligned firmly with Cuban American leaders who believe sending Elian back to Cuba meant returning him to a communist dictatorship. The boy would become a propaganda trophy for Fidel Castro. The U.S. had a moral obligation to protect him from totalitarianism. Florida Republicans accused Clinton of kowtowing to Castro. In the run-up to the 2000 presidential race, Republicans argued that Clinton and Gore had betrayed the Cuban Americans. The raid showed Democrats were comfortable with authoritarian tactics. Gore, initially sympathetic to keeping Elian in the U.S., flip-flopped under pressure. This deeply damaged Gore in Florida, which Bush ultimately won by 537 votes. Congressional Republicans escalated the fight. GOP lawmakers attempted multiple actions, pushed for Elian to be granted U.S. citizenship, subpoenaed Janet Reno demanding answers, held hearings condemning the administration's handling of the case. Is that crazy? It's like who'll ever forget that moment? But it's like, who's in power? What are they going to say? You know? I mean, but what about now? I mean, that was how long ago? 2000? 25 years ago? Do you think that those same, like, if Biden was actually executing the law like Trump is, do you think Republicans would be complaining about it? I don't know. That's like another good question. Let's find out. Let's dig deeper. If Republicans, if Biden was actually executing the law like Trump is doing with immigration would Republicans freak out about Biden's tactics, or would they be supportive of them in today's climate? Let's see if ChatGPT can answer this one. Great question. And here's the honest, real-world answer based on today's political climate, not 10 or 20 years ago. Most Republicans today would not freak out if Biden actually enforced immigration law the way Trump is. In fact, they would be stunned and largely supportive, but with a huge caveat, they would assume he was doing it for political survival, not because he truly believed in it. There you go. That's a pretty simple answer. I can run with that. Makes perfect sense to me. Now, sorry, I went on a total tangent there, but I had to. We had to figure this out. It totally reminded me of that moment. Let's check in on Senator Tom Cotton on Meet the Press, talking about the destruction of these boats that Whoopi Goldberg is so terrified about because she's not feels any safe.
Traffickers. The order, like the entire operation, Kristen, is to destroy these drug boats, which are running drugs into our country from foreign drug cartels and traffickers that are killing hundreds of Arkansans every year and hundreds of thousands of Americans. Now, of course, before our military conducts such a strike, they have multiple sources of intelligence that give high confidence that everyone on that boat is a foreign drug trafficker, not an innocent civilian who's being human trafficked, for instance. And therefore, Secretary Hegseth said, and I agree, they're all valid targets. Now, this controversy, let's remember, all started with a Washington Post story about 9 days ago that said after the first strike, there were 2 survivors that were helpless. And then they were ordered to kill these helpless survivors. That is simply not the case. They were not floating in the ocean on a wooden plank or in life jackets. They were on the capsized vessel. They were not incapacitated in any way. It was entirely appropriate to strike the boat again to make sure that its cargo was destroyed. It is in no way violation of the law of war. And I think the Washington Post owes Secretary Hegseth and especially Admiral Mitch Bradley, a highly decorated career Navy SEAL, an apology for that slander. The order.
But of course they won't. They're just pushing their narrative. Here is Representative Jim Hines, Connecticut congressman. And he decided to go on MSNBC with Circleback Psaki, Jen Psaki, to defend narco traffickers. How do they do this? How do they do this?
To the wreckage, you know, I live in a political world, and a lot of folks, if you just tell them, you know, the president is killing narco terrorists in the Caribbean, you know, reasonably enough, they'll say, you know, a lot of Americans die because of overdoses, and, you know, they might say, okay, I'm supportive of that, right? But what you need to do is you need to see 2 terrified men clinging to the wreckage of a ship. And these men are not, this is not Pablo Escobar out there on a boat. You know, these are guys that probably didn't have a lot of economic opportunity, made a terrible decision to participate in the drug trade. And, you know, I live in a political world.
Probably didn't have a lot of economic opportunity. So they were desperate to join the drug trade. Oh, John Kennedy, one of my favorite senators, sitting across from Sean Hannity. Oh, let's see what he has to say. This is gonna, you know, this is good. Every time, every John Kennedy clip is solid gold.
I am very troubled that you have senators and congressmen that are saying, well, you must not obey a president, the commander-in-chief's illegal orders, and not one of them can name an illegal order.
The last few days
Sean, have been surreal. I mean, honestly. Many of my Democratic colleagues, some Republicans, they've been acting like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. I mean, they're just hysterical. They've clearly exceeded the limits of their meds. They're running around. They call the president a warmonger. They call the secretary of war a war criminal. They're speaking directly to our folks in the military, telling them to disobey orders. They're out of control. And they're confusing two issues. First, legally, there's no question. You don't have to be Oliver Wendell Scalia to know this, that the president has the authority under the Constitution, Article 2, to use military force without congressional approval. I mean, he's the commander-in-chief.
Every president has done it.
Yes, he is the commander-in-chief, and he's operating under the law. And the deep state's freaking out. Why? An Obama-era DEA just got criminally indicted for aiding cartels, laundering $12 million of their dirty money. Obama's cartel connections are finally getting exposed.
For the Jalisco News. This is a Fox News alert. A high-ranking Obama DEA official was just indicted for trying to help the cartel. Paul Campo conspired, allegedly, to launder up to $12 million in drug trafficking proceeds. Campo and an associate by the name of Robert Cincy are accused in the scheme of converting cash into cryptocurrency to buy 220 kilos of coke, worth about $5 million on the street, and then attempting to launder even more money, almost $750,000 from other drug sales for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. These two gentlemen have been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and as you can well imagine, also with money laundering conspiracy. Campo has pleaded not guilty, and he is in custody tonight. There's a good chance, Jesse, he's not going anywhere anytime
soon. But here is the bombshell. You just heard it. An Obama-era DEA official has been criminally indicted for aiding cartels and laundering $12 million of their dirty money. A deep state insider caught helping the very narco-terrorists that Trump is now destroying. This is why the establishment is panicking. He's blowing up their cash machine. And this is why the media is lying, because the lid is blowing off the Obama-era cartel pipeline, and Trump is severing it at the root. And the story matters because it reveals whose side the Democrat Party is really on. President Trump ordered military strikes against drug boats flooding America with poison. The response from the left: defend the traffickers. Whoopi says she feels unsafe because cartels are being stopped. Seth Moulton suggests Trump will actually murder Americans. Jim Hines calls narco-terrorists poor fellows lacking opportunity. Tammy Duckworth lying on national television about classified footage. Did I miss that clip? I must have missed it. Where is the Tammy Duckworth clip? Oh, here it is. Let's play that real quick.
I have seen.
Senator, have you seen the video?
I have seen the video, and it is deeply disturbing. I am mostly concerned with the fact that we are putting our American servicemen and women in jeopardy here. We're putting them in jeopardy in case they ever get shot down. We're putting them in legal jeopardy. They could be brought up in international criminal courts. And so what we're doing here is taking those professionals, or utmost professionals, and putting them into harm's way. And that's what bothers me the most about what Pete Hegseth is doing. He is the least qualified Secretary of Defense in our nation's history, and he's very cavalier about doing things. The fact of the matter is, only Congress can decide that we can go to war, and there was no such declaration made.
I just want to make sure that that I get this accurate. You have seen the classified video of this particular strike, the first strike, and then the double tap, as it's known.
No, I've just seen what's been available in the media. Okay. I've read the full report, but I've not seen the actual video.
Senator, have you seen the video?
There you have it. Tammy Duckworth lying on national television about seeing classified footage. The question was clear. And of course, now we learn an Obama-era DEA official was on the cartel payroll the entire time. Senator Eric Schmidt said it best, Democrats claim to have X-ray vision into cartel intentions, but were blind to the fact that they had a president operating as a vegetable for 4 years. The hypocrisy, staggering. The corruption, real. And the crackdown is only getting started. So here's the question for the comments. We could talk about this. Should all Obama-era officials with cartel ties be investigated now too? Yes or no? Simple question. Drop your answer below and support independent journalism at the Next News merch shop. All right, we got some super chats that have come in. Okay, we have this from Al Begansian. Looks like 10 pounds sterling. 10 pounds sterling. Ah, my crumpets. Sorry. LOL, you don't need a warrant when you have a court order, and Dems really hate seeing Trump smash their piggy bank scams, laundries, and drug operations, etc. Should I say that in my best British accent? Thank you for that. Appreciate you. Salty Nationalist dropping 10. Save America, save the children, deport illegals, close the border, make America affordable again. $10. Wyatt Earp dropping $20. Good show, brother. Also, this is Bama Gold on X. Right on, Wyatt. I'll try to remember that. Bama Gold. Like it. Both your screen names. Wyatt Earp and Bama Gold. Nice. And Kerrang dropping $4.99. I wonder if there's a Cartel to Clinton Foundation link. Wouldn't be surprised. Neither would I. The level of pay to play over there. So you guys brought us up to $58.32. Not quite the target we want to hit, but we are thankful for every single dollar you guys give. So there you have it, folks. Another night on the Raw feed. Another night with the stories they don't want you to hear. Got told anyway. Of course, we started talking about December 8th, 1941. The day Franklin Roosevelt stood before Congress and called Pearl Harbor a date which will live in infamy. The day America woke up to an enemy that had operated in the shadows, planned in secret, and struck without warning. And of course, I mean, there's an argument. They knew. But of course, Congress declared war. The nation mobilized, and America fought back. 84 years later, we are fighting a different kind of war, not against a foreign empire, but against enemies embedded within our own institutions. So tonight we expose how the January 6th pipe bomber case is unraveling before our very eyes. A suspect who checks every narrative box the establishment needed, a profile too perfect, a timeline too convenient, and questions the DOJ desperately hopes President Trump never asks. Who is really running this case? Because if deep state holdovers are still pulling the strings inside Pam Bondi's Justice Department, this is not justice, it's political engineering. And then we showed you how the Somali fraud empire in Minnesota has officially become the largest welfare theft operation in American history. Over $1 billion stolen, fake children, fake NGOs, and Ilhan Omar's political machine at the center of the firestorm. The whistleblowers are talking, ICE is raiding, and the empire is collapsing. An F&A Ranger dropping $2. Didn't Clinton declare war on the drug cartels? I don't remember. I think he may have. I probably did. But of course, what's happening right now, Trump is doing it, destroying it all, finishing the job as Ilhan Omar's empire is collapsing. Then we revealed how Netflix is making an $82 billion power grab for Warner Brothers, HBO, and every cultural franchise that shapes the American mind. The Obamas, Susan Rice, DNC mega donors, all positioned to control Batman, Superman, Harry Potter, and the thoughts of millions. President Trump says he'll weigh in. He may be the only firewall. Then we documented how Governor J.B. Pritzker released over 1,700 criminal aliens, including murderers, violent predators, back into American communities to hide them from ICE. Well, Democrat lawmakers, specifically the new mayor, the communist, Zoran Mandami, openly teaching illegals how to evade federal agents. And 62,000 lost children rescued from trafficking and abuse that the Biden administration never even looked for. And then we showed you how Trump's war on narco-terrorism is going nuclear. Drug boats destroyed, cartel supply lines severed, Democrats defending traffickers on national television, and an Obama-era DEA official indicted for laundering $12 million for the cartels. The DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, working with the cartels. Let that sink in. Roosevelt called December 7th a day of infamy. Tonight, we're exposing the infamy happening right now. So if the show meant something to you, tell a friend, share the stream, hit the merch shop in the description, and gear up. A huge thank you to everybody who sent in Super Chats and Rumble Rants tonight. You guys keep the mission alive. But your support means everything. I'm Gary Franchi, and I want to thank you for joining the Raw feed, and we'll see you on the next show.